How do we act when we're in crowds, when we all want to get to the same place at the same time, we all want the best view, and we have to put up with other people's behavior? When the pressure is on, it can really test how we regard other people. Hello, I'm Bruce Marciano. Welcome to Who is Jesus? A 6-episode exploration of the life and the teachings of Jesus. In this, the third part of our journey, we'll be considering some of the big questions in relation to how we treat each other. Tolerance of others helps us get along with people with whom we disagree. But is tolerance enough? In his novel, 2 Cheers for Democracy, E.M. Forster suggests, tolerance is just a makeshift, suitable for an overcrowded and overheated planet. It carries on when love gives out, and love generally gives out as soon as we move away from our home and our friends. Forster suggests that as we move away from our circle of loved ones, love gives way to tolerance. So if tolerance is just a makeshift, is there a better way? How can we actually learn to treat each other better? In this episode, we'll be exploring what Jesus had to say about how we relate to each other and the wider world around us. In the last episode, we saw how Jesus treated people who were sick, how he had compassion for them, and how he ultimately shared in our suffering. Bring them here to me. We may not be able to actually heal people as Jesus did 2,000 years ago, but we can certainly make a real impact on them by showing them respect, a little understanding, compassion, care. In other words, showing them some of the same love that Jesus showed them. Let's check out what Jesus had to say on this important topic.
Do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets.
Let's think about Jesus' golden rule. Do to others what you would have them do to you. According to Jesus, this single rule summed up all the other rules of how we should treat other people. Jesus challenged us to actively seek good for others, even our enemies.
You have heard that it was said, eye for eye, and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if someone wants to sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. If someone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you. And do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. Forgiveness is an important part of healthy relationships of any kind. Where Jesus lived and taught in Capernaum, he used stories to best explain what he meant. This is a story he told in response to a question from his friend Peter about forgiveness.
Then Peter came to Jesus and asked,
Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother when he sins against me? Up to 7 times.
Jesus answered,
I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. As he began the settlement, a man who owed him 10,000 talents was brought to him. Since he was not able to pay, the master ordered that he and his wife and his children and all that he had be sold to repay the debt.
The servant fell on his knees before him.
Be patient with me,
He begged.
and I'll pay back everything.
The servant's master took pity on him, canceled the debt, and let him go. But when that servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii. He grabbed him and began to choke him.
Pay back what you owe me.
He demanded. His fellow servant fell to his knees and begged him, "Be patient with me and I will pay you back." But he refused. Instead, he went off and had the man thrown into prison until he could pay the debt. When the other servants saw what had happened, they were greatly distressed and went and told their master everything that had happened. Then the master called the servant in. "You wicked servant," he said. "I canceled all that debt of yours because you begged me to. Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servant just as I had on you?" In anger, the master turned him over to the jailers to be tortured until he should pay back all he owed. This is how my heavenly Father will treat each of you unless you forgive your brother from your heart. Each day has enough trouble.
And he pointed out that we should be forgiving to others and non-judgmental because we too have our faults.
Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, "Let me take the speck out of your eye," when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrites. First take the plank out of your own eye, then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye.
But Jesus' teaching on treating others well, it wasn't just theory to him. It was principle that he lived by. It was how he treated other people, no matter who they were. Rich, poor, sick, outcasts, and maybe even a little bit especially the children.
Then little children were brought to Jesus for him to place his hands on them and pray for them. But the disciples rebuked those who brought them. Jesus said,
Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them. For the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. Jesus said that the seemingly least important people were the most important to him. On a number of occasions, he spoke of servanthood as the highest goal.
Jesus called them together and said,
You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many.
Once again, Jesus urged for humility.
The greatest among you will be your servant. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled. And whoever humbles himself will be exalted.
And Jesus urged people to remember what was most important.
Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give a tenth of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law: justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former.
In Jesus' day, the religious leaders adhered to strict rules about the way they should live. One example is in relation to the Sabbath, a special day God gave the people to worship and honor Him. So many rules had been added to what people should and shouldn't do on that one day each week. Even the most religious people found it hard work to keep all the rules. Jesus wanted to show them a better way, and that people are more important than rules, even religious rules.
At that time, Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry and began to pick some heads of grain and eat them. When the Pharisees saw this, they said to him, "Look, your disciples are doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath." He answered, "Haven't you read what David did when he and his companions were hungry? He entered the house of God, and he and his companions ate the consecrated bread, which was not lawful for them to do, but only for the priests."
Or haven't you read in the law that on the Sabbath, the priests in the temple desecrate the day and yet are innocent? I tell you that one greater than the temple is here. If you had known what these words mean, "I desire mercy, not sacrifice," you would not have condemned the innocent. For the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath.
Going on from that place, he went into their synagogue, and a man with a shriveled hand was there. Looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, they asked him,
"Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath?"
He said to them,
If any of you has a sheep, and it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will you not take hold of it and lift it out? How much more valuable is a man than a sheep? Therefore it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath. Stretch out your hand.
So he stretched it out, and it was completely restored.
Jesus explained the commandments in a new and positive way. Matthew relates the story of how Jesus was challenged one day about the importance of the commandments.
Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question.
"Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?"
Jesus replied,
Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments.
Jesus told many stories about what it means to love your neighbor as yourself. And he made it very clear that how we treat others is closely linked to our relationship with God.
When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his throne in heavenly glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "I tell you the truth. Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat, and I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." They also will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry, or thirsty, or a stranger, or needing clothes, or sick, or in prison, and did not help you?" He will reply, "I tell you the truth. Whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life.
Sadly, among Jesus' followers, good treatment of others has often been patchy. Some of history's greatest crimes, unfortunately, have been committed in the name of Christianity. On the other hand, some of the finest examples of true service to others can be found among followers of Jesus who have taken seriously his statement that what you do to the least of these brothers, you do to me. Heroes such as Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, Desmond Tutu, Bono, and countless lesser-known servants of humanity have been inspired by the teachings of Jesus to work to make the world a better place. Christian organizations and welfare agencies have always worked hard all over the world to alleviate poverty, end slavery where it exists, provide education, bring medical aid to the sick and the dying. Within your local community, there are followers of Jesus working in obvious or less obvious ways to treat others as he taught us to. This goes further than tolerance, further than just putting up with people. It's about truly loving others and wanting what's best for them. Even people that you might find hard to love. Even people you might describe as an enemy. I know, that's a serious challenge. Jesus lived what he taught. That's an exciting reality. Jesus talked about forgiveness, and he also forgave. He said we should care about the poor and the outcasts, and he did that in his own life. He said we should be interested in people who are often overlooked, and he took time to be with children, despite being a busy and popular traveling teacher. Jesus isn't just a figure in a history book from long ago. What he taught and how he lived his life can make such a difference in our lives today, in our relationships and how we treat each other, in the workplace, who knows, maybe even between countries. One can only dream how different our world would be. We'll be exploring more of these possibilities and realities in our next episode of Who is Jesus? As for now, thank you so much for joining us. God bless you.